Mr. Chairman.
After the questioning by Senator Collins, I want to say for the record that Senator Van Hollen is here today. He had to go vote on the floor, and he'll be returning. Senator Manchin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Gensler, thank you for being here. I think you know I sent a letter to you concerning on the SEC's ruling, if you will, or presumed ruling. And we talked briefly about that. So what I really wanted to do is make sure that we have the Scope 3 emissions. I have a really hard concern about the ESG, because if ESG is not taken with the same light that basically geopolitical unrest that we see around the world, you're putting us in a very unfair advantage or disadvantage, can be very harmful. I say that because friends that I have over in the UK, when it came to survival, when it came to freezing to death or basically being able to maintain any type of quality of life with all the stress because of the Ukraine war, they threw all caution out the window. And I think, you know, because they were just trying to survive. So the environment took a way, way far back seat. And if we do it properly, if we have a balance between the energy and the economy, we should never get in that disproportionate, unbelievable situation. So on that really my letter addresses those concerns. And if you all could give it consideration as far as this Scope 3 emissions could really be devastating to the smaller operations. And I'm understanding you all have already, I think, evaluated, you have of the 500 largest Russell 1000 index companies, 90% of them already published sustainability reports calling into climate. So it's putting a lot of burden on the food chain way down low, and people just don't want to put, you know, we're hearing an awful lot of comments on that. So if you want to just say something about that, or if you are aware of that and considering that.
No, I thank you for the question. I want to say this, as I've said before, we are merit neutral at the SEC. Congress debated this 90 years ago. It's a really important feature. Investors get to decide what investments they make, and we're a disclosure-based agency. And like the statistic you said, investors are already relying on climate risk disclosures by companies. Well over half of the top 1,000 companies already make disclosures, not because we mandated, Senator, but they're making it because their investors want that information to make investment decisions. So we took it up to make a proposal to bring some consistency and comparability to a lot that's already happening. To your question, if I might say, about so-called Scope 3, this is for the other senators and members, this is like supply chain greenhouse gas emission or customers, you know.
We take it in the chicken. The chicken house is clear from the chicken, you know what, all the way up to where you eat the chicken.
I think that's a good way to say it, Senator. I think I've got it. When we made a proposal, we even thought that it was this so-called Scope 3 was at a different stage of development, different stage of disclosures, fewer companies making the disclosure. We took a tiered approach at that time. Okay. But I would say this, we've heard the feedback, and it's from the agriculture community, it's from the small and medium-sized enterprises, and around Scope 3 discussions. And I assure you that we only have, you know, a rule that we're trying to finalize to bring comparability and consistency about the public companies. And a lot of comments came in about alternatives to ensure that we don't inadvertently somehow, that the reach of the rule doesn't go to the non-public companies, which I think is that's your consideration.
Yeah, we're talking about the small end farmers, the small end producers, those people who are beholden to the larger corporations. And they really dictate to them what they do and how they do it anyway, and they're under the gun no matter what. But you put an extra burden on them, and they're marginal sometimes now.
But I assure you, we've heard loud and clear. I can't prejudge where we'll end up. I mean, staff has to pull this together. We got 15, 16,000 comments on this one, so it's likely to take more than that.
We can get you a lot more if you need them.
What's that?
We can get you a lot more if you need them.
All right.
I'll give you all the ones we're getting, and we'll transfer them to you. I understand that under your tenure, the SEC has proposed twice as many rules as your predecessors. In the spring of this year, you announced your intention to finalize more than 24 of these rules. My colleagues on both sides of the aisle, as well as businesses of all sizes, have expressed concern the SEC has provided insufficient time for public comment. These are probably things you've heard anyway, particularly given the significance of many of the rules. Constituents and companies affected by these rules believe comment periods should fall in the traditional 60 to 90-day range. However, under your tenure, 74% of the rulemaking has been a 30-day comment period. So, given the importance of providing maximum certainty to the public and changes to financial markets, will you commit to adhering closer to traditional public comment periods for future rulemaking, which the people think they just need to get a proper cross-section?
So I'm sure your staff did very good work, but if I can just...
Well, you can correct us. Sometimes, we even make mistakes.
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. But my predecessor, Chair Clayton, finalized 64 rules. Our docket is looking to do 50 to 55. We finalized about 19. We have about 35 proposals outstanding right now, and so we're in that same zone. Two, in terms now they might be different types of rules.
Right?
Yeah, over a 4-year term. We may have gone a little bit sooner in the 4-year period, but the whole docket's about 50.
But his was 60. I'm understanding his was 60 to 90-day, comment period.
So in terms of the comment periods, our average period from the time we vote it and put it on our website to literally the close of the comment period has been, I think, 74 days. Now, what we do is, because there's a period of time before it gets in the Federal Register, we generally put things out. We say it will be no less than 60 days from the time we vote, or later if it takes long to get in this Federal Register.
Okay.
But for instance, in some really important rules around equity markets, we put that out for 105 days. The climate rules that you mentioned were out, though I don't have the notes here, well in the high double digits days. We've also reopened between a dozen and 20 rules where we get further comments. And as I say, because it tends to take between a year and 20 months to finalize, we continue to take meetings, we continue to take input, because these are important matters, as you say.
Thank you, sir.